All right. Hopefully this thing's on. I'm holding the microphone so it's clearer. Anyways, what's up, guys? This is episode 1 of a video series. Maybe, I don't know what I want to call it. Called Day 0 to Now. And this first one will be about the OP14 meta. But yeah, let's jump into this. It's called Day 0 to Now. I was going back and forth on the name, but this is basically, I have a lot of knowledge from starting this game since before it started, playing on tabletop sim with friends and just trying to get the cards to work, and all the way to the present meta. You know, I don't have that many accolades to show for it, a couple tops, whatever. It's not that crazy. But been recording videos since maybe OP4-ish, somewhere in that time frame to present. And I just have a lot of knowledge I'm willing to share for free. I'm not paywalling any of this. It's just, you know, I got some free time. I want to make some content for people to consume, and I don't know, there may be an episode 2, there may never be an episode 2. There's no schedule or anything. It's just, you know, I had a lot of this stirring in my mind, and I thought somebody out there may benefit. So this is nothing anybody asked for, but, you know, here we are. Anyways, planning to talk about OP14 meta in this video, matchups across the board for these decks, and going over some of the really popular leaders in OP14. I'm not going to be going over like OP13 leaders like Ace or Emu. There are probably a million videos on that out there somewhere else. Just talking about some new stuff, some of my experiences, and you know, tips and tricks regarding that. So anyways, you know, I like the sim for certain things, seeing certain lines, and just testing out decks and seeing what works. But I don't take the wins and losses that seriously, because, you know, it could be a misclick. There could be a misclick on my side, their side. The player skill level is kind of all over the place, unless you're kind of like grinding and you're like in the top 10 of players. Maybe then it's a little more real. I couldn't say, I don't have that much time. But, you know, this is compiled data from TCG matchmaking. And I mean, data is data, right? It may not be representative of everything, every element to these matchups and everything like that, but it means something. And so you can see some of the more popular leaders: Emu, Luffy, Ace, Dofi, and these are the kind of win rates that people are getting with these decks. Everything seems to be pretty on par, as the entire history of One Piece has been. Nothing's like overwhelmingly dominating. I think that, you know, Emu is just very strong, has a lot of tools at its disposal, and so it's probably why it's up there. Luffy, everybody's trying out. You got triggers left and right, and strong bodies with a strong curve, so, you know, all that stuff. Ace is still up there. And anyways, let's jump into some of the meta analysis part. All right, so really, this was from the most recent kind of big tourney for this meta, which was, I believe, in Australia. Don't quote me. On the left is the top cut. These images are straight from Eggman, but the top cuts on the left, you can see a huge portion was comprised of 3 of the biggest decks: Emu, Mihawk, Ace, and then we've got Boa and Dofi right behind. And so with that, you know, this is the kind of meta you can anticipate playing against, and just knowing how these decks work can really give you a leg up on the competition, whether that's playing at your locals or going to big tourneys or whatever. But, you know, even if you can't make it to big tourneys, a lot of this is probably relevant and helpful for your locals, and being able to take that over. I always think that's fun. And then if you can do your 9-round, 10-round big regionals, you know, that data gets extrapolated. And anyways, the overall's on the right, and you can kind of see there was a pretty big spread, nothing too overwhelming. But you can see that on the left, the consistency of Ace and Emu kind of take over a big portion of that wheel, and then Mihawk in there with the really strong power ceiling. So that's kind of what we can anticipate moving into Bandai Card Fest and other regionals that are coming up for OP14. Here we have some more metadata from the sim, but this is just kind of a good little, I don't know, benchmark, a good place to kind of start looking at some of the matchups across the board. And for people who don't know how to read this, you look at the leader on the left and it's their win rate against the leaders on the top. So, you know, at the top here you can see Yellow Luffy has a really favored matchup into Hancock, and then just moving down the list. But what we can see is that for the most part, every deck kind of has a hard loss or, you know, pretty difficult matchups. There's nobody that's just dubs across the board. And even when they are a hard loss, it's not like, you know, 100% to 0. So there is still that possibility of winning no matter what. But just the inherent curve of the deck, the kind of bodies that they have in there may make the matchups go in any direction. So with that, let's jump into the first deck that we can go off of here on the list, which is the new yellow starter deck 29 Luffy, which has 6 life. It's pretty much a vanilla leader until the game gets going, when they only have 2 life or less, where when they attack they can draw 1, discard 1. As you can see from the sim data, has pretty favorable matchups against the top decks except for Emu and Ace. And I have some theories around that. You know, Emus can remove their bodies, so then there's a lot less tempo for them. Ace, a 6k leader, is pretty hard. You have to attach Dawn to commit a swing. And they also have tall blockers like Newgate that can really help mitigate the damage. They got bouncing, so there's a lot of that. But even with that, it's still pretty winnable. 60-40. It's like, it's not the end of the world, but it is unfavored. What is good is that one of the more I don't know, scary decks of the format, Boa, with all their triggers, very, very favored. Also pretty favored into Mihawk. So that's pretty good for you know, taking into the current meta. So what I kind of have planned for this video specifically is to take a look at kind of what their curve is, and seeing kind of the gaps in their game plan that can help you navigate the matchup better. And some of this may be obvious, some of it may be repetitive, or people have gone over it, but for people who don't know it or are unfamiliar, it could be helpful, and that's kind of the target demographic here. But anyways, so regardless if they're going first or second, the curve that I have shown in this video would be basically whatever their turn 1 is, turn 2. So whether they're on 1 or 2 Dawn going first or second, typically you're going to see a Lilith coming out first, searching, and that's really good information for you. It tells you kind of what to anticipate on that turn, right? If they find a Sanji, if they find a Kuma, if they find whatever, you can kind of anticipate that that's what they're going to be playing on that curve. So that's bonus information for you, knowledge that helps you navigate the matchup when that turn comes around. For them, if they leave 2 Dawn up going second and you swing at them, they're probably going to be activating Flaming Dragon King, which allows them to look at all 6 of their life, which is a lot, 6 opportunities for different triggers, and then to restack it however they want, so that their bodies are probably all going to be on the top coming out, and their survival triggers like a 0 cost event or a blocker are definitely going to be the last ones if they have them. So if they activate this, you can probably assume and play around kind of the what you would anticipate that you would stack or what they would stack in the most ideal scenarios. So just keep these kind of things in mind when you're navigating the matchup, because having more knowledge is power, right? So being able to know what they're going to play on what curve is incredibly strong, and a tool that you can utilize to navigate any matchup, really. So after that, they're on 3 or 4 Dawn, and most of the time they're going second. If they go first, they may just play another Lilith and then maybe save the Dawn. If they have 3 Dawn, they're saving it for Flaming Dragon King, whatever. So but if they're going second, you can anticipate that a Sanji comes out, or if they're ballsy enough, drop a Kikunojo because they don't think you'll have remove for it. And this is just another body, and them trying to keep tempo on the board by playing a body every turn. Sanji helps them look for more Straw Hat stuff. Again, take mental note of what they search for, so you know that if they're going to 6, that maybe a Robin's coming down, or you know, they have unblockable event on them now, stuff like that. Just another opportunity for you to gain more knowledge into what they're going to do, because this deck in general has a pretty linear game plan, and knowing how to navigate that and what you can expect on every turn really helps you know, navigating the matchup and being able to handle these risks that they have, and bodies that come out of life and all that stuff. So after their 4 Dawn turn, they're probably on 6, and it more than likely is coming down as a Nico Robins, and you'll probably have 3 life at this point or more. So that's probably coming out, and that makes you lose a life straight up, so you don't get that to hand or anything. But if they don't have it, then they're playing Kuma, which lets them heal. Another opportunity for another trigger to come out of life. Another just a strong body, 7k body. So just know that when they're on their 6th Dawn turn, one of these bodies are coming out. And it goes without saying for all of these decks when I go over them, that if they're not dropping these perfect curves, then they're playing under curve, and they're probably going to be using their Dawn to swing bigger, but their tempo is going to be kind of off, right? Like if they're on their 6th Dawn and they don't drop one of these bodies and drop another Sanji, it's definitely not a very strong move for them. And then now they have 5k bodies on the board, which you can clear a lot easier than these 6k bodies. After that, they're on 8 and 9, moving into their later game turns, right? So you can always anticipate that your life is going to be trashed from one of these effects. It's trashed from Kid, or it goes to your hand from Bonnie, and they got a rush 10k body on the board. So being able to navigate the matchup, planning for them to trash your life, you know, you maybe want to be more defensive early game, especially for the low swings, using your hand to protect your life so that you're not in a position where they can push hard for game later when these bodies start coming down. So that may be something that you might want to do. Also keep in mind that Bonnie does have a trigger, so you may need to play around that in the end game. They just rest the characters, so definitely swing with your board later first if you're going to be pushing for game, so that you don't get shut out of going for lethal. So just having that kind of knowledge going into the later turns is very important. But knowing all this is their only line of play generally. They start with stacking or Lilith, they drop a Sanji or Kikunojo or something like that. Then they drop a Nico Robin, and then they drop these big guys towards the end. So once they have that all established, they're kind of just using their Dawn however they want after the bodies come down, right? On their 10 Dawn turn and higher, then they're just pushing your life. They may swing into board if it becomes too overwhelming for them, but generally they're going to push your life hard, drop multiple Bonnies or multiple kids to burn it, and then go with the unblockable event that we see here from ST29, where they just swing out 15k to face, and you got to deal with it. So knowing that that's coming, you need to plan accordingly. Don't take the last life, or utilize blockers on board or events in your hand to save the last life so that they can't just get a free 15k to your face or whatever, or 14k. So this is kind of the general strategy against this deck. But some of the main strategies is that if they do use that event, the Raging Dragon King, whatever the 2-cost event is, you may want to starve them early so that they don't get too many bodies on board. Because if you can imagine them on 2 Dawn, they save it, you swing, they stack it. Then on your 3 Dawn turn, you're swinging at them, they already stacked it, and a Sanji pops out. All right, that's not so bad. But then on their 4 Dawn turn, they drop another Sanji. So now they have 2 bodies to your maybe 0 probably. And so that's just going to snowball into the end game, right? So knowing that that's happening and knowing that trigger bodies can come out, make sure that you are playing around those and not just swinging into life willy-nilly, because bodies can come out and they can just overwhelm you without you even expecting it. They do have 6 life. They have 6 opportunities for that to happen. So try to keep cards in your hand that can handle the bodies. Like if you're playing Blue Jozu, right? You can bounce the body if you're playing Atmos. If you have Gravity Blade, kind of plan around that bodies may come out of life, and swing accordingly. Another strategy you can employ is soft starving them. Other than Sanji, they generally don't have a way to recover more cards to hand, and so swinging at their board and ripping cards from their hand, 5 to 5, 6 to 5, being able to swing low numbers at their bodies will drain them of their hand resources, so that when they have their board turned, you can easily clear it and take back tempo. It also kind of sets you up for endgame and lethal situations, because then you can kind of do the math to find out what you can swing for and what you can try to push for game, right? And then be conscious of their unblockable event and being able to navigate that situation and try to stay in a safe range where if they do have it, they're not going to kill you, right? So utilize your blockers, utilize your events, whatever you have, so that you don't go straight to 0 and it's their turn with fresh 10 Dawn and they're just swinging at you with the Bonnie and 14k to leader, right? So that's just some tips for that matchup. Another very popular leader, Mihawk, which is probably one of my favorite leaders from OP14, is very strong into kind of the older meta like Emu and Ace, and may struggle a little bit against some of the newer leaders like Luffy, Hancock, Doflamingo, Moria, Jinbei especially, surprisingly. But you can win it. You need to be able to take first, play your curve, and control the board as much as possible. But the nature of those decks are that they swarm the board generally, and them going wide really hurts because the deck doesn't really have too much counter, which we'll go into more right now. So on their first turn, they're generally playing stage or some kind of searcher to complete their curve, right? They're generally wanting to have a 5, 7, 9, 10 drop in hand so that they have something to play every turn. And those drops that come down on 5, 7, 9, and 10 are all super strong and generally stronger than any other decks 5, 7, 9, and 10 drop bodies. And that's kind of what is keeping Mihawk in the game. They have very strong bodies that have a very tall power ceiling compared to the same 5, 7, 9, 10 drops that other decks have available. So they're going to be playing these searchers sometimes more than once in order to set that up for themselves moving forward. After that, whether they're on their 3 or 4 Dawn turn, there really isn't anything else for them to play but more searchers or to swing high into life. So just be anticipating that. If you can clear them and they don't have stage, that's always a good tip because they need those bodies to be able to rest for their leader effect. So kind of use your swings there if you need to, because you can always connect to life later against Mihawk, because you don't need to swing big against him to be able to take his life. What you need to do is a little swinging low, and I have some tips on that later. But after that, when they're on their 5 Dawn turn, any of these 5 drops could be coming out. Bonnie from OP7, you got Tashigi, hard to remove, can go up to 8k. You got Carrot, which is a repeating stun, it's really strong. And then you've got Perona, which is a proactive double stun on 2 different bodies. All very good options for Mihawk, and honestly, with the variety of Mihawk builds, you could end up seeing any of those. So kind of, there's not too much you can do in order to play around it. But if the bodies end up turning or getting tapped, then you can kind of aim for their bodies and drain them that way. Another thing that could come out is Law, especially if they're going second. They could be dropping the Law, bouncing one of the searchers, and then dropping a 5 cost. And that's a huge tempo play for them because now they've dropped for 6 Dawn, they've dropped a Law and a 5 drop. So keep an eye out for that kind of play. There's not much you can actually do to stop that, but anticipating that, you can make different arrangements for that. For example, if you're doing a mirror match, you may want to save the go all out event. If you have some kind of freezing in your deck, if you have Gravity Blade, if you have Jozu, stuff like that, you can plan around what target to bounce and other stuff like that. But this is pretty standard stuff. On 7, they're 100% aiming to play Shanks. There's just no other card to play. If they're playing something else, it's because they didn't have Shanks. This card is so stupid strong for what it is. It has vanilla stats, 7/9. It also has the 10 drops ability to -1k to all characters. And if you have 2 out there, it's -2k, which is really, really crazy and makes it super hard for anybody to penetrate into Mihawk's life. So they're 100% dropping this if they have it. If they don't and they're playing another 5-drop, you're in a very good position. That's all there is to it. But keep an eye out for this because it does cut right through mid to small blockers, and that can become an issue later in the game. So if you have removal, definitely save it for this guy. The tall bodies don't do too much other than, I mean, the 9-drop Mihawk does, but it's not the end of the world, right? It's kind of just like a big carrot. So on 9, they're either, depending on the matchup, they're generally going to drop another Shanks or a Mihawk if they don't have it. So anticipate that. And then after that, it's just La Beppo time. They're dropping 11k bodies. They're restanding their Dawn for the events and hoping they live like that. So really the main stuff that Mihawk relies on is that they have a very low count of 2k counter. Generally, they're not running more than 8. Some do in very rare scenarios, but most of them run 7 or 8 2ks for the whole deck, which is not too many. In addition to that, swinging, in my opinion, swinging only 1k over is a very good strategy against Mihawk to drain them of resources. You don't need to swing tall. It's kind of like the strategy that people used to employ against Up Luffy. You don't have to swing tall against them until you're going for game. You can just swing even or just 1k over because they don't carry that many 2ks. And if you're only like 1k over, sometimes they have to end up spending a whole event just to avoid that attack. So just keep that in mind when you're swinging at Mihawk, whether it's at their board or going for game or whatever. Being able to drain their hand and keeping a mindful count of what they have in their hand left. You know, they only have 4 cards and you have like 5 bodies. Well, you don't even need to swing high, right? Because each swing is going to cost them 1 card and then soon they'll be out of hand. So it's really strong. So having a wide board also very, very strong. And that's kind of why Mihawk struggles against the matchups earlier. Moria, Jinbei, Boa, they all make wide boards. And it's because each swing is costing them a card from hand. And they don't have to swing tall. So that goes back to swinging low. And also do what you can to remove the Shanks, whether that's power reduction, red rock, any kind of bouncing effect. That Shanks is very pivotal to their strategy and being able to stay alive, because if they can reduce your power, that means that you need to attach Dawn to swing for the same power that it used to be. Therefore, you're not using that same Dawn to establish tempo as well. So removing that Shanks is very pivotal for the matchup. Okay, I put this in here because if you're enjoying what you're hearing so far, watching so far, if you could like and subscribe at it helps me out. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything. It helps me a lot, and it'll help me inspire to make more of this content. But if you don't like it, don't hit dislike, you know what I mean? Just don't do nothing. Anyways, that's a little plug right there. All right, up next we have Boa, one of the more popular leaders from the from OP14. Need a water break. The problem with Boa is that every time a body comes out of life as a trigger, they also get to draw. So not only do they get to play the body for free, but they also get a card for it, which is kind of nasty. And if they have a Dawn attached, clearing bodies is painful because you end up having to take a life. But as you can see, they have a very unfavored matchup into the new yellow Luffy, and that is attributable to their six life leader, as well as potential triggers and tempo for tempo. They're kind of matching their pace. So that's pretty bad. And the rest is pretty favored, especially if they go crazy and start triggering bodies. But anyways, they normally start off with the Sengoku search, probably to find the 4-drop Boa, the big Boa, or even an event. or Kuma. So that, again, keep those kind of things in mind. If they use Hiyori or Gloriosa to stack their life, it is my opinion that you don't swing into them until you have the tools to handle what could potentially come out. And most of the time, worst case scenario, that would be a Gorgon Sister, which is a 6-cost body. And dropping a 6-cost body on your turn 2 is insane. And then after that, whether they're at 3 or 4 down, they're typically dropping the Marguerite or a Boa Hancock or a Ran and establishing that. And if you swing into them early, they may have 2 bodies, and that just gets nasty real quick. So keep that in mind. This is kind of, so their board probably at this point is like a Searcher or a Stacker, and then one of these bodies. On 6, you can definitely anticipate that a Rayleigh could come down if you're at 3 or less life cards. So if you have valuable bodies on the board, you may want to try to utilize your hand to stay afloat, so that you're not at 3 or less life, so that they can't pop one of your 7k bodies just by playing Rayleigh. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And it also helps you kind of navigate the pudding scenario. If you're using your hand early to keep your life healthy, then you also don't have too many cards in hand, and they're less incentivized to putting you, unless they're totally crazy and putting you just to mix up your hand, which I wouldn't put past some people, but in certain scenarios it may be applicable, but I don't know what's going through their head when they do that. Anyways, if they don't do Rayleigh, their next best play, which is also good, is Kuma. They can heal. That's the same thing. They get another opportunity, another body trigger. Also, when you kill the Kuma, they heal another one. It's just, this card is so broken, and that's probably why it's $50. After that, they're an 8-don, 7 or 8-don. They really don't have like a solid curve to be playing on that turn, so normally they'll kind of flesh out their board with whatever they need at that time. They may look for another 4-drop blocker boa. They may hard play out Gorgon Sisters and then just start utilizing that effect to attach to everybody. And normally around this turn, which is their 4th turn about, if you have a lot of cards in hand because you weren't able to block some of those early swings, it may be prime time for them to putting you. So definitely keep that in mind. Definitely try to use your hand early to stay afloat, so that they don't putting you. But sometimes it's unavoidable, and that could be to your advantage to help you get a refreshed hand, but generally it's pretty bad. So keep an eye out for that. But after that, they may also drop another boa. So after that, it's big boa time, and all they're doing is ripping your life. So keep in mind that they're going to be swinging at your board constantly, because they don't really have to swing into your life to take your life. This big boa will rip the life, and it also heals them. So after that, they're keeping a Dawn open for Slave Arrow, which lets them bounce one of those early game stackers. So make sure you try to clear those if that's possible. They may use the You'll Frighten Me event, which is essentially a Bonnie leader effect. Totally stops an attack. And then they also have a Perfume to go for game, another unblockable use. And if they have any of the Ran or a Gorgon Sister, they could easily do a 20k unblockable swing with the big boa. So same thing with that Luffy strategy. You need to play around that, kind of plan that if that occurs, or if that's a possibility because they showed you the Perfume, or that they searched it, or you even suspect that they have it, it's a good idea to save your counter for it, plan accordingly, to know that that's a possibility for you. Sometimes you can't plan around it and it just happens, but sometimes you think they have it and they don't, and then you play weird. So honestly, most of the time you're going to want to play like they have it, but sometimes you want to just play the most optimal play, and if they don't have it, they don't have it, which is great. Because you're going to lose anyways, right? So you might as well play the best play you can, like establishing blockers, even though you know that they may have Perfume, right? So just something to keep in mind. So some key strategies in this matchup is to early starve them, especially if they stack their life. If they do not stack their life, you can gamble. You can do the first swing and see if it goes through and see if they trigger a body. If they don't, great. If they do, something else you got to handle, and you got to chill out on swinging to life, because if more bodies pop out, that's not good. If you dare clear their board, which is fine. If you're in a healthy state, you may want more cards to hand, so you get that, take that life. But if you're going to clear, try to do what you can to clear at least 2, if not more, because the effect is only once per turn. So if they have 2 tapped bodies or 3 tapped bodies on the board, this is a great opportunity to milk their hand or clear multiple bodies. So look for those opportunities where you can, to be able to clear multiple bodies at once. If you can only clear 1, it's kind of no point. Well, it's not no point, but it's just like you clear 1, you take a life, and then you're unsuccessful in clearing the other ones. It's like you just played right into the leader effect, right? Which it happens. If they counter, it sucks, but now that's counter that they don't have going into the end game, right? If you're playing decks like Mihawk, if you're playing decks like Ace, board control is very important. Bouncing their board, that's it's different than killing their board, right? So then that doesn't trigger their leader effect, but it also helps you maintain tempo and stop their tempo. Really, really strong. Keep in mind, again, about the unblockable event that could come up, and that can be pretty devastating. But like I said earlier, sometimes you just got to play like they don't have it, so that you have the board to go for game on the next turn. Also, there is a Thriller Bark variant out there, which when we talk about Moria, will give you more of an idea of what you can anticipate. But just know that there is, if you start seeing Thriller Bark stuff, then they're anticipating that triggers are all up in their life. So that's another thing, is that you need to maybe hard starve or starve harder, so that you can have a board that's established before you start pushing hard for game. So just something to look out for. Okay, another leader, Doflamingo, which is what I would say is probably not as popular as I thought it was going to be, but there is people out there playing it. The leader effect allows it to -1 Dawn to redirect an attack to literally anything, which lets their on KO small bodies go off. They could take a hit to protect a body, whatever it is. So that's really annoying, but there's not too much you can do to play around it other than swinging well. So we can go over that in a little bit, but generally they have pretty good matchups into the meta other than Ace and Emu and Moria, and that's just because Moria, they go wide, they heal, they can never, it's hard to like get through, in my opinion. But yeah, anyways, on their turn 1, they're generally playing their Sugar Searcher or their Dellinger. If they do the Sugar Searcher, it is a 1,000,000% worth it to swing into that thing with your leader to clear it. If they dare -Dawn, that is terrible for them, because then they take the hit to life, but now they're at -1 Dawn, which is like super bad. If they do have a Dellinger, swing super low into life, like just a 5 swing. You don't need to go tall, because if you go tall, you're incentivizing them to use their leader effect. But if you go 5, they may give you a card, as opposed to if you swing like 7 or whatever. So anyways, that's just a little tip there. They don't have too much of a 4 Dawn play. Generally, they may play the Sugar, which allows them, once their opponent has 6 or more Dawn, so they can't even really use it yet. If their opponent has 6 or more Dawn on KO, they can play a 5 or less from their hand, which we'll look at momentarily. But both of these, they ramp a Dawn when they play, so they go up to 5 generally. And then they can go right into, if they don't -Dawn, then they go to 7, and then they're kind of in a position where they can afford to use their leader effect on the following turn, so because they'll hit 8 and hit that nice Dofi curve. But anyways, if they do this Sugar and you have a mechanism to rest it and swing at it, that's a really good idea, in my opinion, to shut down that play for them. But that's only if your deck has it. Like if you run, I don't know, there's other cards that rest. I don't have a good example on top of my head. Maybe X-Drake, green X-Drake. I don't know. There's cards out there that rest. I wouldn't say use like a DMG or something, but just if it's like something that is already part of your natural curve, that's cool. But I'm not saying go seek that out. Okay. Their 5-6 Dawn turn, they're generally playing one of these 3 guys. The best one to be playing, in my opinion, is probably Monet. than Virgo. They're kind of tied in my opinion. Virgo protects their entire board at the cost of -1 Dawn. So if you have any removal, all they have to do is -1 Dawn and nullify that. So keep an eye out for that. Don't waste any bouncing abilities or target stuff or whatever. You can just bounce your own stuff if you need to, like a Jozu double bounce searchers. That's fine. Monet ramps them on play, and then on KO they draw 2, discard 1, and ramp 2. So that's really, really strong for them. And these bodies can come off and end up getting played from the sugar. So just keep that in mind as well. The Rosinante helps them maintain Dawn staying up so that they can use their events towards the end game. Generally not playing that one on curve unless they have just no other options. Then the shit show starts happening, right? Because once they hit 8 Dawn, they're dropping the Dofi that plays a 5-drop, and they're playing these bodies out, 2 bodies per turn pretty much, until they start spamming 10 drops. So it's at this point that you're going to want to try to start swinging for life, and try to get them down into a state where they have to use their redirect as a means to block and save themselves. And it's at that point that you may want to start using taller swings so that when they do redirect, it'll still take out a body. So anyways, that's just, it's kind of weird and nuanced to kind of describe. But generally you don't need to stop swinging at Dofi. The only thing is, if you have removal, you may want to move the baby 5, the one that heals them. If you have a mechanism to remove it, like a Jozu bounce or something, then you can start swinging. That's always good. But the -1 Dawn to redirect an attack, it's not super terrible against, it's not super strong. It is very good, but it's similar to like Bonnie, right? Like you don't really need to stop swinging. You just need to keep swinging. If that makes any sense. I'm sorry, this probably sounds ridiculous, but we'll keep going for now. After that, they can either double drop with another 8-drop Dofi into a 5, or they're spamming 10 drops on you, which locks up 3 characters or pops an 8 or less. Either one are very impactful effects, but they have to have 10 Dawn. So keep in mind what their Dawn count is when you're doing those swings, because it costs them -1 Dawn. And if they're not recovering it from the Dofi because they didn't drop that or whatever, then you can effectively stop the 10 drop from coming down if they don't have a way to recover the Dawn that they have to minus. So then you can just swing and force them to use the minus Dawn effect or use a Nora beam, and then they lose even more Dawn and they can't drop the 10 drop. So that's especially nuanced in the end game to kind of know how much Dawn they have and how much they're capable of recovering, because you could end up denying them the 10 drop by doing your swings correctly, right? So that it's better explained probably with examples, which I don't really have right now, but my main takeaway is that keep track of their Dawn count and just see if they use their leader ability or Nora beam, if that would cost them Dawn, and deny them the 10 drop, which would help you out a lot because they don't always have the 8+5 combo in their hand. So some of my tips for the matchup is to remove their weenies when you can, so that they can't just get super free blocks. So that's mostly around the early game. The Virgo proves to be a very big issue. So if you have a way to remove the Virgo, like reducing its power for red decks, or even in purple decks, you have the is it the 0 cost event? I forgot what it's called. I think it's Divine Departure, actually. I don't know. But you can reduce the power and then swing into it. That's always really good, because then in the late game you can utilize some of your big bodies that do have removable effects without having to worry about Virgo protecting them. So prioritize removing Virgo, because it also has an incredibly strong effect that when they swing, they can -2k something. So then that's just a 2k power up to their whole board swinging at that unit, right? So definitely that Virgo is a huge problem. Prioritize removing that if you can with power reduction, or just swinging at it tall if you must. But the thing is, you don't want to swing too tall at it because they could just redirect, right? So you got to be very strategic with the swings there. and that goes into sequencing your swings. Knowing how to swing and when to swing what amounts is very pivotal. Definitely you want to be at doing at least 6 or 7, because they're going to redirect into like the Monet or the Virgo if you're swinging only 6, or they'll redirect into the 9 cost, which is kind of unavoidable. But at least if you're swinging 6, you're taking out the Monet. If you're swinging 7, you could potentially be looking at removing the Virgo. So just know that kind of what would you do when you swing and you're on their side of the board? Like, what would you do to redirect, and then kind of plan around that. It's, again, this is a little hard to explain without hard examples, but it's more reps against a deck will definitely help you kind of understand that concept. And then in the end game, especially if you're playing decks like Ace or decks that establish blockers before swinging, Noro Beam is a problem. So make sure you either swing out first before playing blockers, or just be aware that you could end up getting stuff arrested, and have a contingency plan if that occurs, like having events ready to protect the unit that gets arrested, or if it arrests a key blocker, or it could arrest a key blocker, then maybe you have to swing a little differently that turn, if you know that they have it or suspect that they have it. But another thing I would also recommend, similar to the Boa and the Luffy unblockable type of strategy, is don't always think that they have it. You know, you could plan as if they have it, but sometimes you just got to play the game and try to finish it out, because if they don't have it, then you'll win, right? So just something to keep in mind. Look at how much Dawn they have, see if it's worth it for them to redirect and Noro Beam, because it's -2 Dawn, and if they only have 1 8-drop out there, they can't recover all that Dawn. So just stuff like that, just keep in mind. Okay, I think this is the last one we're going to go over, which is Moria. I'm not going over Jinbei, mostly because I think that is too small of a population, and I also don't play the deck, so I can't really speak to it too much. But Moria is a very popular leader this time around, basically swarms the board like crazy, has healing abilities, and can force trigger the on KO effects. Has very bad matchup in the Luffy and Boa, probably for the trigger aspects of their decks and being able to swarm right back. The problem with Moria is it doesn't really have a way to recover your hand. Everything that you drop, it doesn't really, it may replace itself, but generally doesn't. Like, you're just losing hand all the time. So you have to be very mindful when you're playing Moria, like how you use your hand. But when you're playing against it, there's a lot of tips there. So anyways, for their curve, they're normally starting out with the Lilith and or Sindri. Sindri can help them kind of get the engine going. Paying attention to what they mill with Sindri is very important, because of all the various trigger effects and bodies that could come out of the discard pile. So mainly all of their stuff has this trigger, which is play a Thriller Bark 4 or less rested from your trash. So all of them have that, excuse me. And so they're typically, that has to be in the trash before it triggers. So it can't be an empty trash and then they try to trigger it on the body that was the trigger. So again, keep that in mind for the early game. But in the late game, pay attention to what they have in the trash, what they're capable of bringing out, and familiarize yourself with some of the key effects like Perona, which stuns a 6 or less. Doesn't allow it to attack. You got Hogback, that when it dies, actually the KO effect for Hogback is when it dies, you can bring back a 4 cost period, and it's not rested. It could be Kikunojo. And then you also have Absalom, which is a searcher for them. So they may stack any of these. Whatever they're stacking, they're generally not getting that same body. So like they'll normally stack that 2k body, the Kuman-C or whatever, to bring out any of these. And so knowing that, they typically will bring out Hogback, this Hogback, so that if you have more removal, it still brings out another body. So that's where planning your swings kind of matters. And swinging low kind of matters, because you can just drain their hand by swinging 5s at everything. They don't have enough counter power to use to save their board and to use their leader effect to heal. So then soon enough you're draining their hand, and every card kind of counts towards getting to that point, because soon they'll have bodies that they turn and they just can't counter it when you swing at it. So you don't really have to go super big when you swing at bodies, but definitely keep in mind these effects and how it will interact with your board, because you don't want to, like, you can clear a Perona when it's your last swing, right? You don't want to clear it on the first swing and negate one of your other swingers. So that's really that's the kind of sequencing I'm talking about. Like if they have a hogback and you have 2 bodies on board, swing at the hogback, it brings out a Perona. Now you've got to stun that body, right? But if you swing at life, maybe they'll do hogback. There's no Perona in the trash. It was a Perona trigger, brings back hogback. You can clear the hogback. Out comes Perona, it stuns it. It doesn't really have any effect on you. So just being aware of what's in the trash and what they're capable of playing that turn will help you a lot in being able to know kind of where to swing and what to swing at. Their ideal play on the 3rd turn is to play the 6-drop Moria, which brings another 4-drop out. Surprise, surprise. And so this is kind of their main strategy, is to be able to play this Moria and the 8-drop Moria to spam the board. But again, the strategy that I recommend to counter it is to swing low at these bodies, because they just don't have enough hand size to do it, and you can starve them. You don't have to swing at their life until you have a substantial board that can counter whatever comes out. So once those bodies start turning, you can just start swinging at them nice and low and drain their hands, so that when they're trying to push for game and stuff, and they overextend and they can't penetrate, then you can clear out their board, and then you're kind of in a safe spot again. So another strategy they have is using the 8-drop, which can heal a 4-drop or play it onto the board. So they'll do whatever is advantageous, obviously, but this allows them in a single turn to potentially heal 2, in which case you need to prep yourself for a 10k swing on the following turn, and then maybe you can combat it, or you can handle the bodies that come out. It's a lot of the play is kind of telegraphed, right? Because if they play this and then they heal and then they swing and they heal again, well, now they didn't establish a board, and next turn they're just going to swing with this 10k. If you can stop that 10k, and then now they have no hand because they double healed, you can swing into the 10k, maybe 2k over it, right? And then drain their hand or just clear it. So definitely it's strategically planning your swings to drain their hand while also clearing the board. That's kind of the main strategy to go against this deck. You don't want to just swing willy-nilly into life. Too many bodies may come out, effects may start happening that freeze your board, so now you're creating no pressure and they're establishing board. It's kind of where the strength of the deck is. So just kind of keep that in mind as you navigate the matchup. Just like Boa, they play Boa. Very annoying, heals and makes you lose a life. So then they can start putting pressure against your life using the 10k that they dropped on the prior turn and any of the small bodies that they still have remaining that you didn't clear yet. So keep that in mind when you're trying to go into your end game, and with your top end, try to plan around that this is going to happen, that they're going to drop an 8-drop Moria into the Boas. And knowing that, how do you plan around it? Save your events, set up a blocker. Don't swing your new gates if you have to, right? You can save them to block these swings, whatever it is. So again, some of the key points are that Moria doesn't have a mechanism really to draw or recover their hand. So swinging low numbers like 5k swings at their bodies or their face is very ideal. Make sure you sequence it in accordance with whatever triggers they have, so that kind of what you can play around, and when a body comes out, how you can deal with it. And that goes along with that trigger awareness to know that potentially a body could come out, potentially this whatever it is. Sometimes they stack it, so now you really know that a trigger is coming out. So now you should sequence your on play effects or playing a character. So maybe you swing first so that it doesn't freeze anything, then you play your characters, right? Stuff like that. Anyways, that is kind of the coverage that I have to offer for OP14 leaders and the current meta. Again, didn't really review any Ace or Emu because that's not news to anybody. But if you enjoyed the format, if you want me to go over other content, like, I don't know, more gameplay. I don't know. I thought this was an okay format to bring this video out and show, you know, some stuff, some tips and tricks into those matchups. But if it would help to go over like specific matchups, maybe that would be, I mean, this video is already running close to an hour, so I don't know, you know, leave the suggestions and we can see what we can do. Yeah, I don't know. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. That way we know what direction to go in. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being here. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. It helps the channel. It's free, and all that stuff. Thank you, and we'll see if there's an episode 2. Who knows? Who knows? Thank you guys.